Having done the first lesson with you on watercolor this past week made me really realize that I am stiff and have become stiff, in particular with watercolor. So I wanted to resurrect an old lesson and do a series of thumbnails with you with several different tools, several different mediums, and several different ways to do things. Some of you may remember that we did this exercise. It's from Anita Lehman, whom I admire so much in watercolor. This was one I did way back when I first took this one class with her. It's a series of thumbnails and kind of intuitive little landscapes. I think this is just an invaluable exercise, and that will be my demo. I'm going to just talk this morning about what that will involve, so in case you haven't got tools or materials that you'd like to use, I can set you up with knowing about what I'm using. I've got this is a quarter sheet of hot press, and hot press works much better than cold press in these particular exercises because I'm going to be using various mediums, including maybe some charcoal with a charcoal pencil, watercolor pencil, graphite, and a few acrylic inks. If you haven't got one, if you got just one, to get a black acrylic ink that's called India ink. F&W and Daler Rowney are the two favorites of mine. This is walnut ink from Daniel Smith. I like it, but it kind of is a little bit like weak tea to me. I'm going to be using a 1/2-inch tape to tape off my little thumbnails. The exercise that Anita showed us was this 1/8-inch tape to separate the squares. But with my old arthritic hands, that's too hard to do, so we'll put that aside. 1/2-inch tape is really wonderful because you do get to separate your little masterpieces, but it also doesn't use up that much paper. I'm going to use a few of my pan pastels. These are literally just pans of pastel, and this is one of the little tools that you can get to use with it, and it just helps enhance any work that you might want to do. If you don't have any pan pastels, and I do not expect you to go out and buy them, most of you have a box, even a little sampler box of these Prismacolors. They're hard, soft pastels. That's explaining that they're not oil pastels. They are water soluble, and they will give you the look of a pastel, but you can also dampen them and they meld into your painting. Kathy Gill introduced us to some of the manners in which you can use these, in that she calls what she does with these ooze paintings, because she uses them in her watercolors and then may spritz them, and that sets them so that they're permanent. And so she calls the amalgamation of watercolors and these Prismacolor pastels ooze paintings. This is Prismacolor. It used to be called New Pastel, but holding company bought it and made it Prismacolor. This is a graphite stick. This is fun to use, particularly, well, I bought it to use with life drawing because it's got some heft to it, and it does make some beautiful marks. I also have, and I think I've had it on your supply list in the past, a 6B. I couldn't find my 8B pencil, but a 6B pencil gives you a soft, dark mark, which sometimes you want to put into your little paintings just to exaggerate a line or so. A Sharpie Ultrafine is a good thing to have because they can also add line, because as you know, line is a design element. Gary showed us in her first little landscapes that she used a sponge. A sponge is a fun thing to have, and they will be fun on these tiny little squares if you want to. This is one of my more expensive art tools. I'll put it on under this so you can see. That's one of those kind of Mr. Clean cheap substitutes for Mr. Clean sponge. And I get them for 99 cents at grocery outlet, and two come to a pack, and I cut them up into 4 or 6 little strips to use to make smudges or blurs or to take something out of a painting. But these are fun things to work with. Another expensive item that I have that most of you should have or could get is this is a 79-cent scruffy brush, just a little chip brush with natural bristles. This is a well-used one. And they make some delicious marks in watercolor. I'm going to be using this most expensive brush I have. I told you about a week or so ago. It has a very fine point, but a fat little bulb close to the ferrule. That makes beautiful marks on these little exercises. You do not have to go and buy one. In fact, I don't suggest it or recommend it unless you're real serious about wanting that kind of a brush. These, as you know, these are 2 different size riggers or line brushes. This, I think, is a number 2, and that makes thin lines. And this is a number 6. But you should have at least one of these, and I think that has been on your original supply list too. But if any of you, I can imagine a couple of you wanting to get a brush like this because they do such fun, beautiful things. I'm going to be using this wash brush, synthetic, and this is a brush that kind of helps smooth things out if you want to smooth something out in watercolor. This is from Sterling Edwards' collection of brushes that he designed himself to just make just kind of very soft watercolor marks or smooth some watercolor marks out. These are just my traditional flats, and then, of course, I used a ruler to mark these pieces off. This is a quarter sheet measures 11 by 15, and so I arbitrarily marked off 12 inches going that way and 8 inches going this way and put the tape in those. And that's just enough to do some little thumbnail, intuitive little landscapes. You will be surprised how fun and rewarding it is, and it doesn't take a lot of time, and I promise you it will get your watercolor juices going. So I will be sending you a video of my doing some of these. I'll stop this for now, and you'll get another video from me shortly.